all major world religious tradition. In the philosophical field, big differences. But religious aspect, all carry same message of love, forgiveness, tolerance, self-discipline, contentment. All have sort of same practice. So harmony is possible. India is living example. We always use the word India, sacred land, Bhagbeyul, sacred land. I usually describe that our relation is a relation between Guru and chela. Ancient Indians were our guru, not necessarily modern Indian. Modern Indian, sometimes I frankly see expressing, sometimes teasing, too much westernized. So, not much pay much attention about your real ancient knowledge. Around 8th century, the most sort of famous philosopher, as well as thinker and logician, his name Chandrarakshita of Nalanda. So he invited by Tibetan emperor, 8th century. He introduced Buddhism according Nalanda tradition. So I always describe Tibetan Buddhist tradition is pure lineage of Nalanda tradition. The existing Western psychology, compare ancient Indian psychology, then the existing psychology looks like a kindergarten level. Indian psychology, highly developed. But you didn't pay much attention. We, in remote area, in cold climate, there's not much to do, so we pay some attention about these values.
If you see, even just 200 years ago, the Buddha had been completely submerged and forgotten. And 4 Englishmen and 1 German running around excavated all these sites and brought the Buddha back into our consciousness. And some actually far off British historians and others. But the Tibetans had preserved this pearl of great price of the teaching of the Buddha in their mountain fastness. And he has brought it back to us. And therefore, we are his students. And we should be in his debt.
Many Tibetans, like Muslim brothers, sisters, the Hajj, Mecca, like Tibetan. You see, once a life, the pilgrimage to Bodh Gaya.
Very few people could afford to come to India, go to Bodh Gaya, Varanasi. But those who did, they used to bring soil and water from India and share it with their neighbors in the village. So it was really considered very, very precious. Tibetans of that generation, whatever time you may call it, were so wise, so dedicated to the philosophy that they really chose it when it came from India compared to what could have come from China. That way, I think they were very wise. And then secondly, I think all the scholars from India that went to Tibet, for some reason, found Tibet the right place.
야가 녀서 보니 녀서 로래 보니 야가 냠 로조 로래 지장 장라 로래 내는 되는 볼라 로래 세줘래 보는 장장의 장不懂不亲不是用的不懂不亲不让些不亲不都送不当这些送不的路的送不都亲不路这些路对了嘛还样的야가了等于下去有了근데 몸체 세신도 저래 몸 개바지도 몸 능바지도 몸도 무슨 요래
Age 6, 7, I already start learning those root texts, memorizing without knowing the meaning. And my case, very, very reluctant to study these things. So my tutor, you see, have to use showing one whip. So I carry the study, not out of enthusiasm or interest, but out of fear. I carry study.
Ngamalino tini ngaso beta tini rote to mare ngaso goto sayo mare ngaso pe jarbo chi gmasere tini rogo ta chi zo ngaso tini chi to zo nombare tanda dio de deshi zo tini ngaso zombele mamo ta ti pare tanda dio de tini jamaso hoshi khalhe gazre.
In 1956, the Dalai Lama came to India. He and the Panchen Lama, who accompanied him, were given a respectful welcome. A truly revered figure in India, the Dalai Lama was doubly welcome, for the occasion of his visit was the 2500th anniversary of the great Nirvana, the Mahaparinirvan of Lord Buddha.
When I first time 56 came, you see that feeling there. But you see at that time quite short and more ceremony, more official things, more formal things, lunch party, dinner party like that.
The way that he walked into Vigyan Bhavan, that hall, it seemed as if there were two people who had come from Devlok and not from this earth at all. That sheer presence of that young, His Holiness the Dalai Lama was so moving, and I'll never forget that impression.
At this time, Mr. Nehru conveyed to the Dalai Lama Mr. Chou Enlai's assurances in respect of Tibet's autonomy, its religion, and the Dalai Lama's preeminent position.
Panditji then counseled him to go back, saying that I have spoken to Chou Enlai and you can trust him. And later on, Panditji regretted that. He said in Parliament that this young man had gone back because of my advice, and I am so sorry that I misled him.
The Tibetan people wanted that His Holiness the Dalai Lama immediately, as soon as possible, leave Tibet and go to India, the land of Buddha, for his safety and also for the general cause of the Tibetan issue.
God King of Tibet makes his first public appearance since his escape from the Chinese communists. In Tezpur, a tea-growing center of northeastern India, the Dalai Lama is greeted by enthusiastic crowds. Now the Dalai Lama is clearly among friends.
Jawaharlal Nehru, on behalf of India, took a decision, I think, much earlier than this, the Dalai Lama's flight, in which there was an implicit recognition of Tibet as a part of China. Now, it was difficult for India to reconcile to this fact because we obviously, for us, Tibet is much more than a neighbor. Tibet is part of the spirituality that has emanated from India.
Whether he was right or wrong is a different matter, but he was very clear from the very start that Tibet belonged to the larger Chinese entity. He did not ever subscribe to the notion of a politically independent Tibet. But being the historian that he was, being the philosopher of history that he was, Nehru also saw and knew that there was such a thing as the cultural persona of Tibet.
When you think back, those 80,000 Tibetans followed His Holiness without any doubt. But on the basic day-to-day level, they had to face with so many hardships. To start with, when they left Tibet, they walked on foot. They walked by night, rested by day because they could not be seen by the Chinese soldiers, and all of that. And on the way, they got sick, and so many children died, so many older people died. Anyway, those of us who finally reached India, there was nothing.
As after we reached India, originally about, I think, a few thousand monk students, and also, I think, about 100 scholars. So these as a seed. So we asked Indian government. Now these people should not send some road workers or like that, road work or these should have some kind of opportunity to study. So we asked Indian government special arrangement.
They were not refugees, they were seeking refuge in India, but these were great scholars. They were great medical people, as you know very well. They were people in terms of the pedagogy of learning. So one realized that if they were in India, it was India's responsibility and its duty to see that there would be a recovery.
Even, the habits in what they were used to eating, the food habits were totally different. And then the climate was so hot compared to Tibet. So they had to go through all these problems of not knowing what to do and how to face every day. And to the extent that you might laugh at this, Tibetans didn't know how to cook dal. And when it didn't cook properly, they thought that was it, and they started eating it. I mean, there were so many other things like that. Vegetables they were not used to. So many of these problems. In one of the settlements, it was so difficult for them to survive because it was totally uncultivated land. And so they cultivated, they sowed the crop. By the time it started yielding, the wild boars would come and eat them all up, or elephants would come and eat them up. So they would get so discouraged. And one time, I believe His Holiness visited that settlement, and the settlement head said, the people are very disheartened. They don't want to stay here. They said they can't stay here anymore. So then His Holiness's answer was, where can you go? We have no place to go.
One Shantadeva, 8th century's Indian Buddhist scholar, a great practitioner. As he expressed, when we face some tragedy or experience some tragedy, think whether there is way to overcome or not. If there is way to overcome, then no need worry, make effort. If there is no way to overcome, then no use too much worry. Very realistic. These come from Indian master's mind, not Tibetan nomad's mind. So I practice that. So, and then also, you see, now for example, we lost our own country. A lot of difficulties. If you look only that part, more frustrations. If you look from wider perspective, that tragedy brought us a lot of opportunity, and opportunity to learn much more.
within each settlement, we had a small school where the Tibetan children studied Tibetan language and they spoke Tibetan language. On top of that, they were able to learn whatever local language and Hindi, wherever they spoke Hindi, and English. And this really gave you the sense that you are still in your country.
When I was in school, I remember reading an interview of him where he said, in the future, we will have Tibetan doctors, lawyers, and engineers. And I said, wow, I should be one of those. I felt like that. And then it inspired us. Tibetan administration, this administration is located in India. Because of their generosity, we have survived. Not only survived, we are strengthening and sustaining. So once we survive, strengthen and sustain ourselves, success is inevitable. So that way India has given this solid foundation for Tibetans.
After I reached India, I want to restart, review all those books which I learned more seriously. Then reading more books about the Nalanda master's writing, then including Buddha's own word. Then, emotionally, now I feel, many occasions I publicly express, now sometimes I feel I'm son of India, because every particle of my brain fulfilled or filled by Nalanda thought, Nalanda knowledge. And this physical, now almost 56 years, this physical survived by Indian dals, Indian rice, Indian chapati. So physically, mentally, I really consider son of India.
In terms of this giving refuge, hospitality for these so many years, India is certainly the second home, and this is not the sense of we Tibetan refugees, but also the sense of the vast majority of Tibetans in Tibet who look south, who look to India across the Himalayas, and see that their hope for cultural freedom, hope for this happier Tibet lies in India, because this is the location where His Holiness lives.
After 59, I lost my own country, reached India as a refugee. I liberated from too much sort of seriousness about formality, nothing. Very good. And then also is opportunity meeting with people from different background, spiritual leaders, political leaders, or president, or prime minister, or king, or queen, and beggars, aid patient, or scientist, different practitioner. Very, very useful, very helpful to learn more experience, more sort of what's the knowledge. Wherever I go, I always talking about ahimsa. Ahimsa not simply is restrain harming other out of fear or out of fear of sin. No. It's respect others' life. Respect others' life as sacred as your own life. Respect them. Sort of feeling, serious feeling about their well-being. With that, ahimsa automatically come. So therefore, wherever I go, I always talking these things. So I consider as a messenger of ancient Indian thought.
I now call upon Your Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama. Will you please enter the podium and receive the Nobel Peace Prize for 1989?
I am no one special, but I believe the prize is a recognition of the true value of altruism, love, compassion, and non-violence, which I try to practice in accordance with the teachings of the Buddha and the great sages of India and Tibet. I accept it as a tribute to the men who founded the modern tradition of non-violent action for change, Mahatma Gandhi, whose life taught and inspired me. The prize reaffirms our conviction that with truth, courage, and determination as our weapons, Tibet will be liberated. Look, you see, many nations, you see, when they face some problem, they still, you see, they rely on use force. This situation must change. There's no other alternative. There's no other option. If we really want peaceful world. So the Gandhi's way, you see, through non-violence, strictly. Peaceful world does not mean no problem. Problem will remain. So the only thing is the way to tackle this problem. So destruction of your enemy is victory of yourself. Now today's reality, no longer that. Destroy your neighbor is actually destroying part of yourself. Now modern economy, ecology, national boundary is not important.
I think there's no one as pure, as unsullied, as in his wisdom, also innocent of a kind, innocence which comes out of very deep wisdom, reflection, and inner resources.
Essence of Narayan tradition is infinite altruism, we call bodhicitta, based on Mahakaruna. That altruism not only benefit to other, but also, you see, immense best benefit to oneself. So with these conviction not develop over one night. Now over last 60 years, since my age, 15, 16, then I developed serious sort of interest about these things. And I study, simultaneously practice. Now 80 years old, so I really found, you see, immense sort of, I said, the power, the practice of bodhicitta and the practice of the prajna, which is understanding shunyata. So, as I mentioned earlier, 24 hours is my mind completely relaxed. And then, as a practitioner of bodhicitta, my body, speech, mind, totally dedicated to well-being of others.
My long-time friend with this beer, they invited me, so I'm very happy. Then I found another one here, very white, sacred beard. This country, more than 2,000 years, I think almost 3,000 years, many different religious traditions live together in this country. Besides homegrown many different traditions, the religion or tradition from outside, like Judaism, and ancient time, Zoroastrian from Persia, then Christianity, Islam, all now found shelter or home here. Although these religions come from outside.
I am Buddhist, pray to Buddha, please bring happy world. Difficult. Muslim brothers, right? Muslim brother, you see, pray to Allah to bring peaceful world. Difficult, frankly speaking. And a Christian, pray to God, bring peaceful world. I think 1,000 years in the West, always pray to God. When you see two communities fighting each other, each side pray to God. I think God made confused. So I carry daily some kind of jihad, or the other side, self-centered attitude. Extreme, I usually call extreme, blind, selfish, and grasping something independent existence. These are enemy side. Now, the other force is understanding about shunyata combined with altruism. So, almost daily basis jihad. So the negative side, internal enemy side, this destructive emotion, no sound basis, all entirely based on ignorance, distorted sort of ignorance. The force combat that entirely based on solid reasons, pramana. So long run, pramana and ignorance, pramana is much more forceful. Ignorance, no basis, if you think constantly.
I do not think we have captured the value of his presence in our midst. We have captured the blessing, we have captured the benediction, but I don't think we have realized that we have in our midst a teacher of pain through laughter, a teacher of experience through wisdom. That we have not recognized. We are the losers, not he.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Your Holiness, is not one every day that one gets to meet you, so I'll have to take a selfie with you.
Oh, yes.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Every day I pray. You know, my favorite sort of prayer is so long space remains, so long sentient beings suffering remain, I will remain in order to serve. That is my favorite, and I implement as much as that.
Nelson Mandela, who has got the Nobel Peace Prize, has got the Bharat Ratna. Mother Teresa, who has got the Nobel Peace Prize, has got the Bharat Ratna. There is no reason why we should not honor ourselves by honoring His Holiness with the Bharat Ratna. But he has no resentment about it. I don't think he even spares a moment's thought about it. That is his greatness.
I consider myself as one of the 7 billion human beings. Each of us have responsibility and have interest. Look, humanity, 7 billion humanity, happy. You individual get maximum benefit. If humanity facing a lot of problem, how can one individual escape? India, most populated democratic country, but humanity, difficult situation, India cannot escape. So India, as a sort of democratic country, greatest populated democratic country, ancient nation, and nation, you see, who developed the concept of ahimsa. Now, India should take active role, promotion of these value, human value, in order to create happier humanity, happier world.
His Holiness the Dalai Lama is always considered the guest here, So I have this feeling that, will we be allowed to stay here comfortably the way we do if His Holiness is not there? It's a very scary thought for me, and if we stop to exist in this country, will we be able to freely advocate the news from Tibet, the human rights issue that we talk about, and it has to spread everywhere across the world, including India. Will we be able to do that in India?
Who will keep this legacy alive? I think that is really the big question. It is the question, the elephant in the room, which nobody wants to recognize. But I think he himself has begun to address this question. He himself has begun to address this question. And I wish that the answer is not merely a narrow political answer.
His Holiness is reaching 80. Is reaching an age when the Buddha attained his Mahaparinirvana. But here we have somebody who is with us at that very age. What a miracle that is. Let us draw from it.
The Chinese communists, they are more concerned about my reincarnation than myself. If Chinese communists are concerned about my reincarnation, then firstly, they should choose one reincarnation of Chairman Mao Zedong. Then, quite logically, they should concern about Dalai Lama's reincarnation. Otherwise, no connection.
I think his greatest legacy, to my mind, is the ability to confront situations where you think there is no hope. So, in a way, I think he is the keeper of human hope. I mean, if you look at his life, I mean, he lost his country, lost his throne. I mean, he is considered the holder of the Lion Throne. And having lost everything, to bounce back and say, here I am, and here is my determination to keep my community together, that takes, I think, incredible courage and degree of integrity, which is really amazing. So I think his greatest legacy, not only for Tibetans or to Indians, to everyone, is that never give up hope.
Even I die, this country, I will be very happy as Buddha's land and land of Nagarjuna. But then there is this Tibetan saying, that's very good. Wherever you feel happy and you feel usefulness, that's your home. then individual. Whoever give you love, that's your parent. I think very good. Our saying, when saying like that.